Croc, Legend of the Gobbos is a 1997 platform game developed by Argonaut Software and published by Fox Interactive for the PlayStation. It was ported to the Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn version looks awful though, in comparison to the PlayStation copy. This was one of the first PS1 titles I owned as a kid. I got my PlayStation back in the Christmas of 1997 or 1998. I can't remember because I was a stupid kid. Alongside a handful of games such as Crash Bandicoot, Hercules, Mickey's Wild Adventure, and Croc. My dad bought himself Toka touring cards to play too, but didn't really take to gaming, so I got most of the PlayStation when I was a kid. My interest in games started when I got to play on a friend's Sega Mega Drive, where I played my first game, Sonic the Hedgehog. I love the bright colours, catchy music, and cute characters, and Croc has all of these qualities. The intro cutscene starts and sets the tone for the game well. Croc is found abandoned on an island by these things called Gobbos. Why are they called Gobbos? I don't know, that's not important. Look how cute and fluffy these furry turds are. I love them. Before I get to the gameplay, I do just want to cover the manual for Croc. It comes with pretty standard information, epilepsy warnings, how to control the game, what it's about, all the usual stuff, but it also has some really cool lore in it. In the introduction, it has the Legend of the Gobbos, in which the Gobbos are described. Who were the Gobbos? Examine ancient paintings from the time of their civilization and you will find that the Gobbos were short, furry people who could be politely described as gerbilesque. But what of their soul? Their character. One historian wrote that the Gobbos were among the most advanced civilizations of their day, making great strides in science and literature, a people whose intelligence shines like a beacon in the night. It should be noted that this historian was himself a Gobbo, and not only made numerous grammatical errors in his account, but also misspelled Gobbo. No, the Gobbos were a simple people, a race whose greatest inventions were edible deodorant and wind-powered cow moistener. Wind-powered cow moistener. Why cows need to be moist in the world of the Gobbos is a question that I don't really want answered, but it's hilarious nonetheless. In over 2,000 years of existence, the Gobbos only sent 3 of their kind to college, and 2 of those were returned postage due. Okay, so they weren't the sharpest pins in the cushion, but were they lovable? You bet. So lovable that they would often keep each other as pets. But oddly enough, it was their very lovability, their very kind-hearted innocence, that set in motion a chain of events that would send the Gobbos plummeting towards a terrifying fate. A fate worse than death, a fate so frightening that those with heart conditions may wish to stop reading now. Although it's really not that frightening. King Rufus the Intolerant, ruler of the Gobbos, was down by the riverbank watching the sunrise. He had just finished breathing a sigh of relief that, once again, the sun had returned, when suddenly a small basket floated ashore. He and a group of his Gobbo subjects huddled around it. Peering inside, they saw a baby crocodile. Naturally, they assumed he must be the early leader in the annual midget crocodile basket race. Not that there had ever been such an event, but you never know about these things, and many of the Gobbos placed bets just to be on the safe side. After a couple of hours, when no other baskets had come by, the Gobbos decided that perhaps there were no race, or that it had been called off the night before the crocodiles shared their concern that the sun had gone away for good. The Gobbos were at first wary of the little reptile, but they were quickly won over by his vulnerability and his inquisitive nature. King Rufus decided that the Gobbos would raise the crocodile as one of their own, and that he himself would care for it, and instruct it in all the ways of the Gobbos. The Gobbos fell in love with their new charge. As he was a crocodile, they began to call him Crocodile, but then someone thought of a clever new name for him, Croc. Although, to some of the Gobbos, he was always known as Mr. Funsocks or Choo Choo McBoogie. Croc learned quickly from his Gobbo friends. He surprised him with just how Gobbo-like he was. I mean, Choo Choo McBoogie, Legend of the Gobbos, sounds like a pretty good title in my opinion. They should change it. He could sing their anthem backwards and forwards and won every Gobbo dance contest he had entered. In fact, little Croc was so Gobbo-like that it never even occurred to him to take a single bite out of a Gobbo. As far as he's concerned, he was a Gobbo. And thus, a great time of joy reigned in the Gobbo Valley. Croc was healthy, King Rufus was happy, and his subjects hadn't had so much fun since the year of the 3-minute egg timer. While walking, he would accidentally smash through buildings and trip over homes. A simple game of patty cake with friends would lead to multiple contusions and internal bleeding. Despite his friends' efforts to brush off these accidents, Croc began to feel out of place in the Gobbo Valley. Just as Croc decided to do something about this, a Gobbo ran past screaming, "Dantinis!" The Gobbos had long told stories of the Dantinis, a band of villains known far and wide for their ruthless burning, wanton looting, and marvellous singing voices. The Dantini Glee Club would have won all the big choral contests had they not been disqualified for eating the judges. What was worse was that wherever there were Dantinis, Baron Dante could not be far behind. King of all villains, Baron Dante was stronger than 1,000 Dantinis, and he had a long-established hatred for all things Gobbo. He had seen the Gobbos and Croc being blissfully happy and decided that enough was enough. It was time for the Gobbos to suffer. The valley swarmed with Dantinis as they captured Gobbo after Gobbo and threw them into cages. Dante watched it all, laughing in his horrible laugh. King Rufus knew that he had to save Croc. He tail-swiped the gong that sat in the centre of the village and it rang, summoning Beanie the bird. She appeared immediately and King Rufus instructed her to whisk Croc away to safety. Rufus looked at Croc. "You're our only hope."
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Alright, now what do I click?
Before he could say anything, Beanie spirited Croc away in a shower of magical sparklies, just as Baron Dante snatched up the king in his iron hand. Baron Dante had taken over all of Gobbo Valley. He used his magical powers throughout the land, turning good creatures to evil. Ladybirds, ducks, lizards, fish, and mountain goats all became horrific creatures under his command. Baron Dante stashed Gobbos under the Dantini Guard throughout his new kingdom, so that if he needed someone to taunt or even bring to tears, a cute little Gobbo would always be nearby. The Gobbos, meanwhile, being a highly social group, were distraught at being separated from each other. Baron Dante kept King Rufus as a personal pet, locked in a cage in the back of his castle. Rufus was taunted day and night by Dantinis. He consoled himself in these dreadful hours that at least Croc was out of the Baron's reach. Meanwhile, Croc and Beanie the bird watched as their homeland was turned into Dante's playground. Beanie told Croc that he must act, but Croc was confused. What could he do against the might of Baron Dante? Beanie grabbed him by the straps of his backpack and shook him with all her little bird strength. "You're the only chance they have. You must help. Can you imagine what it's like for a Gobbo being all alone?" Croc sniffed. He could easily imagine what it was like, and he felt more alone than he'd ever been before. Straightening himself up, he said to Beanie, "All right, but I'm going to need your help." Here, the legend becomes fuzzy. Historians are unsure as to whether Croc was actually successful in saving his friends. But one thing is for certain, from that point on, he became the greatest champion the Gobbos had ever had. The manual goes on to normal stuff, like starting the game, what to expect on the main menu. It has a cute little Gobbo in the background, map screen, options, passwords, which was a thing in this game. You could save on a memory card if you had one. You also had the option to save your game via passwords, and if I remember right, after a certain point, some of the passwords are bugged, but I don't know if that was for certain regions. There's nothing else really in the manual that sticks out that is like not any different from any other manuals. Okay, onto the gameplay. The game's levels were divided into several subsections due to hardware limitations at the time and Argonaut's desire to not have to deal with creating convincing depth perception. This is not so bad in the earlier levels, but as you progress through the game, getting to the desert levels in particular, depth perception can be an issue. However, it doesn't entirely ruin the game's experience, in my opinion. The team designed the game's levels with the mindset of making each individual room feel like its own individual puzzle that would give the players a sense of accomplishment whenever they completed it. The game's first level, named "And So the Adventure Begins," was a reference to the title card of the music video for the David Lee Roth song Yankee Rose.
Give me a bottle of anything and a glazed donut. To go.
The level shouting "Lava, Lava, Lava" was a play on words with the lyrics shouting "Lager, Lager, Lager" from the song Born Slippy by Underworld, which appeared in the British comedy film Trainspotting. Some snowboarding levels were created for the game, but removed near the end of development because there was not enough time to finish them before the deadline. They were supposed to be featured in the game's sequel, Croc 2, but that didn't happen either, and instead we got snowball riding levels, which I still don't enjoy to this day. They're stressful as hell, and I hate them. I'm sorry. Croc's eyes hit the ceiling. This is the reason animals should have eyelids. How does he blink? Does he blink? Oh god. This is one of those many platformer games that conditions you to turn backwards because there's always something behind you. Except in this game, where they do it once, and they don't do it again till the next world. And then I think in a total amount of times that you do have to turn backwards for there to be items behind you that you need or want, it's probably about 3 or 4 times. It's not that much. I always found these rat things really creepy. I don't know what they're actually called, but they used to terrify me as a kid. If you step outside those boundaries where you push the block, they go after you, they make this horrific noise, and it makes me jump. Every time. And I hate it. I hate it so much. So the Tumbling Dantini, a whole level named after the Tumbling Dantini, only shown once, never comes back. Right at the beginning of the level, does a little cartwheel, does a little laugh, smack him in the face, he's dead. You move on. That's it. This is one of the few instances where there will be boxes behind you. It doesn't happen very often. The next one isn't until the snow levels, I think. And then after that, I don't think there's many more. But yeah, it tricks you. The orange waterfall looks really delicious, like tango. Forbidden tango. Mmm. Some levels have these sparkles hidden. When you walk into the sparkles, it takes you to a secret bonus level where you can earn some extra lives, or die if you're bad at them, because some of them are kind of hard. Some of them are really easy, but some of them are kind of hard. And you got to make the judgment one, whether it's worth it to go into these sparklies, or just avoid them and carry on. There are 5 worlds in Croc. Each section has a theme, with music and settings that always accompanies each themed world really well. The main goal of each level is to navigate through the stage and reach the gong located at the end of the level to transport Croc to the next, where Beanie Birdie will teleport you to safety, whilst also saving as many captured Gobbos in prison throughout the stage as possible. Certain stages also contain boss enemies, known as Guardians, that Croc must defeat to progress to the next stage. Each boss is pretty easy to beat, with the most interesting of the bunch being Neptuna, due to the battle being held exclusively inside an underwater tank. Various collectibles are scattered throughout the stages, including small crystal orbs that act as Croc's health, similar to how Sonic uses his rings, and red hearts that give players an extra life when collected. Also hidden across each stage are 6 Gobbos being held captive by the Dantini tribe that act as Croc's main objective throughout the length of the game. 5 of those Gobbos are hidden in various locations throughout the level, often found just hanging around or in or outside of boxes and cages, whilst the 6 Gobbos in a bonus room hidden behind a set of doors that can only be reached by collecting 5 coloured crystals hidden throughout that level. These crystals can be found throughout the level, however, some don't show their colours until you collect them, making completing each level 100% an extra task, where you almost feel obligated to go through every single crystal that is out there to make sure you don't miss a coloured one. However, one thing I have noticed whilst I've been playing through Croc, as an adult I spotted it, as a child I didn't, but the colour crystals float lower than non-coloured crystals. I don't know if that was intentional as a hint, or if it was just left in there as a bit of an error. It's still kind of cool to see. Rescuing every Gobbo in each world unlocks a secret level that can be completed to collect a jigsaw puzzle piece. Subsequently, collecting every puzzle piece in the game unlocks an extra island containing more levels for the player to progress through. Whilst collecting the Gobbos is not mandatory into completing the game, doing so is nonetheless necessary to face off against the game's boss and unlock the game's true ending. The final boss is called the Secret Sentinel, which is a ghost version of Dante, I think. Again, not very challenging. The most challenging thing for most people seems to be actually figuring out how to kill him, but it's as simple as making every beanie gong ring near enough at the same time, simultaneously I guess, so that he explodes. Yeah, once you figure that out, it's pretty simple. Croc's manoeuvring abilities to perform a sidestep and 180-degree quick turn as other methods of movement make up for the tank controls in my opinion. The 180-degree movement is definitely something I use quite frequently, however the sidestep, not so much. Taking place in Gobbo Valley, the game follows a young crocodile named Croc, who sets out to rescue a group of fairy creatures known as the Gobbos from an evil magician, Baron Dante. This is proof that all magicians are evil.
So, if you just place these back into the pack, just pop it back in, that's it. Sorry, I'm nervous. And before your very eyes, I shall do the magic shuffle. And ignore that. This will go in here, and Bob's your uncle, abracadabra, is this your card?
No, Michael. I'm sorry, Michael. It's over.
So this is the first boss, Feeble. All he does is run after you like you stole his waffles. He's pretty easy. Just wait for him to stop running. Hit him, he'll ping. You run again, he'll chase you. Wait for him to stop. You hit him, he pings. 3 times, and he's done. The sound the 50s greaser worms make when they go back in their well sounds like a wet fart. Grim. Stupid box running away thinks he's people. I don't know why this box runs away when it has a Gobbo inside it. Doesn't he want to be saved? The boxing ladybug looks like Angry Kid. Does anyone remember Angry Kid? I wish I didn't.
Result. How much is a butt plug?
As well as the sparklies that you'll find littered around various areas, there's also secret platforms hidden. And they're usually below the platforms that you'd be stood on usually, so they're hard to see. If you land on them, if you're lucky and don't just fall into the abyss below, they're also a secret bonus level, which will take you to a place where you can earn extra lives. Same as the other ones. They, again, can be quite hard. Some of them, again, are quite easy. I would say the hardest part of them usually is actually just getting onto the platforms. It's a judgment call on whether you actually want to bother trying to get on the platform in the first place for the bonus. I like to do it just because, I don't know, why not? Why don't we throw Croc off a cliff? For shits and giggles. With all the bonuses that you'll come across to collect all the Gobbos in the game, one of the worst ones for me is the Cauldron by far. I don't know about anybody else, but I hate them. They're the worst. They're slow, they're boring, pain in the ass if you miss any crystals. Sometimes you'll slip off the button before you've actually had a chance to press it, which means that you'll just miss, and then you have to do the whole thing over again. And that's not the Cauldron. You can't do the Cauldron again. You have to finish the level, or leave the level, go back into the level, collect everything else that you've already collected before to get to the Cauldron part, and then do that again. And then if you fail again, you gotta do it again. It's annoying. It was one of my least favourites. I hated it as a kid. I still hate it as an adult. It's frustrating. The penguins in this level before the boss are cute. I like how they jump out of the water and do a little skiddy. The boss is a waste of time though. His attack's just dropping on you and it's over really quickly. I just run around for a bit, wait for him to drop, whack him, run around for a bit more, wait for him to drop, whack him, rinse and repeat 3 times again like all the other bosses, and he's done. Really such a big waste of time. I feel bad for him. Another bonus, which is exclusive to the desert levels, is the ghost bonuses. At the end, through the crystal door, for the final Gobbo, you'll get these ghost bonuses. They get kind of repetitive because they are in pretty much every single level to get the final Gobbo. And they do vary, but not by much. It's not enough for me to get excited about in any way. They used to be difficult as a kid for me because I didn't realise that when they collect the crystals, they weigh themselves down. It makes them slower, which means that they're less likely to catch you up and grab the key before you do. If they grab the key before you do, you've got to do the entire level again. You can't restart, which is annoying. So when I was a kid, being a kid and wanting to collect everything, I used to just run through the level, grab all the crystals, and there was the occasion on the easier ones where I would still beat the ghost to the key, but on the later levels where it does get harder, I never used to get the key, wonder why the hell this ghost was so freaking fast, and not know the reason why until I was a bit older and a lot less stupid. Beanie's got a little snorkel, it's so cute. The game initially started development shortly following a successful relationship between Argonaut and Nintendo, with the former creating a processing chip for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System called the Super FX that was used in games such as Star Fox to display 3D polygonal environments. It was first pitched to Nintendo as a prototype for the 3D platforming game in which a player controlled Yoshi from Nintendo's Super Mario series, but was ultimately rejected by Nintendo, ending the relationship and prompting Argonaut to retool the game as an original property. The history and timeline of Nintendo after they shafted Argonaut is shifty to say the least, but that's a whole can of worms I'm leaving for another time. It sold over 3 million copies for the PlayStation, and even though the gameplay is fairly standard for a platformer, with few original ideas and tank controls that seem to upset a lot of folks even today, it's still regarded as a fun part of 90s gamers' childhoods, including mine. When you look at the skybox on some levels, you can see what seems to be the remains of Mushroom Kingdom. Was this left in because they didn't think anyone would notice, or is this because they just didn't want to make new skyboxes? Maybe they ran out of budget. It's cool to see what was remaining of the Yoshi levels though, assuming that's what that was. It could be a pure coincidence though. The engine of Croc was reused by Argonaut for several of their other games, including Alien Resurrection, Disney's Aladdin in Nazira's Revenge, and Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Hello, Harry, it's me, Hagrid.
They were also responsible for creating the N64 game Buck Bumble, with a very memorable Speed Garage soundtrack that slaps. The soundtrack was developed at the same time as the rest of the game. Rather than being composed for an otherwise complete game, the composers created so many tunes for Croc that the audio had to be compressed in order to fit it all on one disc. The music has always been one of the most catchy and memorable soundtracks that PS games had to offer at the time, in my opinion. Every single area has its own unique themes, and that's clear to see from the music, and I love listening to it, even when I'm not playing the game. The voice samples for Croc were provided by British actor Jonathan Arris, who was friends with Argonaut's audio department at the time.
Okay, and go!
Mr. G, why are you on hunger strike?
In the struggle for justice, I was willing to lay down my life, just like Martin Luther Vandross did.
Arris came into Argonaut's studio to do the role and recorded all of his dialogue within an hour. The game was released in Japan on the 18th of December 1997 for the PlayStation and on the 26th of March 1998 for the Sega Saturn as Croc, Pow Pow Island. It was published by Mitsui Media Quest. The front cover of the Japanese version of this game is different to the Western releases, where it features Croc standing on a realistic looking beach alongside some Gobbos. The eyes of the Gobbos seem to be a bit larger too. It's okay for a box art, but I prefer the PAL version as it represents the game better with what to expect. A commercial for Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, was featured at the beginning of a VHS release for Casper, A Spirited Beginning, as well as a VHS release of Power Rangers in Space. The commercial for the game was also featured in the June 1998 VHS release of Home Alone 3. The PlayStation version of Croc, Legend of the Gobbos received generally positive reviews from critics. Reviews also widely praised the catchy music, the atmospheric sound effects, and the added optional challenge of accessing secret areas. Croc Legend of the Gobbos was considered a commercial success for Argonaut, with the PlayStation version of the game selling over 1 million copies in the US and becoming a console bestseller in the UK for 2 months. By September 1998, the game had sold more than 1.5 million copies worldwide. Over 2 million copies of the game had been shipped by May 1999, and by March 2000, it had sold over 2.4 million units. The game went on to become one of Argonaut Software's best-selling titles, with the PlayStation version of the game selling over 3 million copies worldwide. A sequel to Croc Legend of the Gobbos was first teased on the back of the Sega Saturn version of the game's manual. Initially advertised for a Christmas 1998 release, Croc 2 was released in June 1999 for the Sony PlayStation, and later for Microsoft Windows and the Game Boy Color. A Sega Saturn release was also advertised but never released, and the Sega Dreamcast port of the game was ultimately cancelled due to the console's poor success. 3 mobile phone games based on the game, developed by Morpheme, were released through the mid-2000s, titled Croc Mobile, Jungle Rumble, Croc Mobile Pinball, and Croc Mobile Volcanic Panic. Due to the success of the original game and its successor, Fox Interactive considered creating an animated TV series based off the games, a plan which never came into fruition, but judging by older platformers' mascots at the times and their offerings to TV animated series, this is probably for the better.
Is a genius, a mental aberration. He's totally fixated on world domination. The local island creatures are dull and obtuse. Until the evil doctor turns on his juice, he wants them for his troops. They come out nincompoops, most especially Crash. Crash Bandicoot should have been a genius, but he doesn't quite compute. Crash Bandicoot. Anything can happen now that Crash is in pursuit. Tom has been selected for running through the blender. Crash will fight to save her. He'll never surrender. He'll vanquish any villain to set his girlfriend free. He doesn't have a clue about how to proceed. His heart's in the right place. His brain's been rearranged unsuccessfully. Crash Bandicoot. If Cortex isn't beaten, he'll reign absolute. Crash Bandicoot. Play our game and tell your friends so we'll make lots of loot.
Once you've reached King Dante's world and completed the levels, you'll get to face off against the evil magician himself. His attacks come in 3 phases, but none are particularly difficult. First phase, he will smash his fist on the ground, causing a shockwave you have to dodge. When you dodge his attacks, hit him 3 times to move on to the next phase. The second phase sees Dante running at you like an angry bull. Just run out of the way till he crashes into the wall, hit him, repeat 2 more times to the next phase, after he's finished spinning around like a pretty ballerina. In the final phase, Dante will float in the air, shooting a series of lightning bolts at you. Just stand underneath him until he stops and hit him 3 more times to end the battle. And just like that, the game is complete. You save the Gobbos from Baron Dante, and the little guys are so pleased they erect a big, giant croc in your honor. It was announced last year on Twitter that a HD Croc game was in early development. On August 28, 2024, Argonaut Games, which had previously closed down in 2004, announced a revival of the company, alongside a remaster of Croc Legend of the Gobbos, scheduled for release on all current consoles and PC in 2024. The remaster will feature enhanced visuals, updated control schemes, and bonus content such as concept art and developer interviews. I can't wait to play the HD version of Croc, and I hope they at least have the option for original tank controls to be used. Don't be cowards, Argonaut. We've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching my first retrospective review, and if you want to see more, please don't forget to subscribe. I've been Beckwan. Give the bell a hit, and I'll see you in a bit. Bye bye.